Welcome, welcome, welcome. Give everybody a chance to come on in. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
I am glad we are not outside today because it's really hot. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's see. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me let a few more people in. We'll get started in, let's say, 2 minutes. So everyone get your sustenance you need. I got coffee. Get started in 2 minutes. Just grab anything that you need. In the meantime, post a couple of things in the chat. Let's see. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to get started in about a minute. Just giving people a chance to log in. Welcome to Tony, who is listening in today. Oops. Put in the wrong address. I'm going to get started in about a minute. Some more people are joining us. Welcome, welcome. Good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Good morning.
More people are still joining, so we're going to wait about another minute or so. Morning, good morning, good morning. Yes, everyone, feel free to grab anything you need. I have a cold cup of coffee this morning. Trying to switch to cold coffee in the summertime. Coffee on deck. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Before we get started, let's play a game. And no cheating, okay? Everybody promise not to cheat.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. So, in this game, I want the very first thing, I want to take 5 seconds. So don't stand up, don't move where you are. Only stuff you can reach. I want you to reach and find the most interesting thing that is within reach to you right now and hold it up for the camera. The most interesting thing, I'll play two, and you hold it up for the camera without getting up. Let's see what we have here. Keep holding it up. I gotta see. What is that? Sarah, what are you holding up?
It's a white goop that you can paint your dishwasher tray when it gets rusty.
Oh, actually, that's important.
Yes.
All right, I see books. I see big water bottle. Oh, I see Legos. Stuffed animal. Oh, I see the wallet. I see. Is that a hummingbird, Maria? I see that. I have this cool Disney lamp that plugs into your computer. Well, it's a Mickey Mouse lamp, and it changes colors, and it's really cool. Okay, so that's the most interesting thing. Now, I want you to put that down, and one more thing we're going to find within reach. What's the creepiest thing? The absolute creepiest thing, like, oh my God, why am I going to show this on camera? What's the creepiest thing within reach? The sad part is, for me, there's a lot to choose from.
I'm in my daughter's playroom, so I hope that there's nothing really creepy in there.
Oh my goodness.
Dried herbs, Miss Carol.
It's dried flower pods. I'm going to save the seeds and plant them for next year.
Yep, it's pretty creepy. Duct tape, yep, why do I have duct tape? Really handy too. Is that a foot scrubber, Lisa? I've always wanted one of those. Does it work?
It's awesome. I mean, well, you don't have to use water, like you do it dry, and it absolutely horrifies Noah because that's how dry the bottom of my feet are.
Oh my God. Maya, we're holding up something really creepy that's within reach. So you just have to find the creepiest thing that's within reach and hold it up. I've always, let's see, Sarah, what are you holding up?
My next door neighbor's used toothpaste tube for my TerraCycle.
That's very creepy. Lois, what's that?
I just have a multitude of pens and pencils. I am a writing utensil freak, I guess.
I think we all have that like box or that cup somewhere. Lee, what is that? A dog nail cutter?
It's a nail clipper for my rabbit.
A nail cutter from the rabbit. Yep, pretty creepy.
Yep.
What is that, Maria?
I'm on my porch, so I've got dead bugs everywhere. So, got a dead bug.
All right.
I'm gonna put it down now.
Pretty creepy. Phil and Catherine, are you holding up the baby? Is that the creepiest thing you have nearby? I didn't think so.
No, because I don't want to pick up Fiona. I feel like that would be controversial. So I was you know what? This, as far as when I'm walking down here in the dark and this goes off by itself, I consider that a little creepy.
Yep, it's very creepy. What is that like? What is that? The Phil.
This is a sculpture of me that Chevy made. There's a face drawn on it that you can't really see that well.
Oh, okay.
And that's my hair.
Yep, that is definitely creepy. Maya, what is that you have?
I don't know if it's creepy, but it's my cat's brush.
Yep. Is there fur in it?
Yeah, there's fur in it.
Yep. And that too is creepy. Christy is just showing us how creepy she looks if she stands in front of the window doorway wrapped up in a blanket and it's 1,000 degrees outside. I get it. I get it. And this, I mean, yeah, the sad thing is there's a lot of, Jillian has really, really scary scissors. really, they come apart.
No, these don't. They're 2 pairs. So one's a 14-inch pair and one's a 12-inch pair of scissors.
Because you never know when the 12-inch just won't do. Thank you for playing. Those are huge scissors. Thank you for playing the cool, creepy Zoom game. Welcome everyone who is joining us today. We're super excited that we are indoors. It was going to be a little hot. Well, not a little hot. It was going to be pretty hot today. And then I have a medical procedure on Tuesday, and I had to take a COVID test on Thursday. And they told me I had to quarantine away from everyone until the medical thing is done, so that I don't contract COVID before I go to for the study. And so that's the primary reason why we're not meeting. But considering it was going to be like 94, 95 by 12 o'clock, that's just really hot. So hence why we're on Zoom. So thank you all so much for getting on here. We're going to start. If anyone has any prayer requests to share or any concerns to share, just raise your hand and I'll call on you and you can let us know. And then we'll start with a moment of prayer. So if you have any prayer requests, raise your hand. All right, Maria, I saw first, then Lisa.
I applied for a new job last week. My employment situation has been pretty unstable because of COVID. And this is a job that would be relatively pandemic proof and also safe at the same time because it's outside, mostly isolated, and it pays. I've had a job that pays well in a few years. So I'm excited about that and hoping that works well.
Definitely keep Maria in our prayers. Lisa, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, just continued prayers for my mom and for me. It's been great that I've been able to be a caretaker and they let me in the assisted living to help with her, but it's kind of overwhelming because that leaves Kevin with everything and we can't really do anything because of COVID with the kids. So it's just really a lot on him too. So I feel like I'm either, even though Kevin doesn't complain, feel like I'm either should be with mom, should be with the kids, should be whatever. And mom's pretty depressed, so she's not super easy to be around. And she doesn't like me being her caretaker. So it's just psychologically been an interesting journey. And also for school, Kevin right now is supposed to go in full time. He just heard something this week. Trying to figure out what to do with the kids is also a challenge.
Yeah. Every teacher, every parent.
Every teacher, every parent, every administrator, everybody associated with schools in any way, because there's just so much going on. And so that along with my mom sometimes has my anxiety pretty high. So just for my mental health and everybody else's. I don't mean I'm alone. But anyway, I'll cut it off. Sorry.
No, awesome. Then Kate, I thought your hand was up. Yes.
So I want to second with Lisa and Kevin about the schools. I'm just taking on a full role as a school nurse because they need me. Technically, my job description is covered under COVID, so they were able to afford me for more. So I'm happy because it's like a happy prayer because, I'll get to stay there and at a full-time rate, but also it's a little chaotic with getting back to school and figuring out how we're going to keep our kiddos safe and our staff safe and trying to explain the needs of the mask and the needs of Zoom calls to have them stay home or if they need to come in. And a lot of parents, they're doing awesome and they're doing their best. I know it's a scary time, but it's just like we kind of just all need to have like a quick reflection prayer just to say that we're all doing the best we can all that. And I have some parents who are a little bit more closed-minded than, most. And so it could be really tough when some are like that. But I think, in the grand scheme of things, like, I don't know how. I'm lucky that Remy is 13 months old and I didn't get to have to do any of like the teaching aspect, because I don't know how that would have went over. But I think parents are freaking superheroes, and that's crazy. But yeah, so prayers for them and prayers for staff and all the school things that are coming at us.
Definitely. And there are lots of schools we have no idea what's going to happen, which is the crazy part too, because it's less than a month before school starts. Lee?
Yeah, I found out over the weekend that my youngest brother and sister, Sean is 15 and Grace is 11. They're going back to school after Labor Day, but they're doing the 5 days in class. And that just makes me nervous, because even though like people argue like kids don't get infected as quick, like as often, or they don't spread it around other people, but like we don't know that 100%. And even just the idea of one child dying from this because they were sent back to school too soon really terrifies me. And I just hope that my youngest siblings, like, they're going to be okay. And like Shauna's in marching band, so they're going to band camp and they're going to be doing competitions and stuff. And my sister's in cheer, and it's just like they're going to be doing so much and being around so many people. And I pray that, they'll get out of this. Like, we'll make it through this without them getting sick.
Definitely. Any other prayer requests? You raise your hand, or you can send it to me in chat. Phil?
Just two. We're heading to Buffalo to see my parents this week, so prayers for safe travels. And then the other thing is just ongoing. I over the course of the summer, I've been working on Miami University. For people who don't know me, I'm a professor at Miami University, and I've been working on their committee to figure out how to reopen. And over the course of the summer, I've kind of made my way up and into a spot of being more or less the top resident public health advisor for figuring out how to open things up. And we've got some really major decisions to make this week, where they're going to be looking to me and my small team of people to figure out some big things. So prayers for me. I could use it. It's a very stressful time professionally, and of course along the line, the theme of schools, prayers for my community.
Definitely. Anyone else? We keep the family of John Lewis and CT Vivian in our prayers. Not just their immediate family, but for those of us who look to their generation and to their lives, their example, their presence. It's amazing how you can have people that you've never met, people that you don't know, people that are famous and seem so far away, but they feel really close to you because you admire them and you look up to them, and you look to hear their voice and you look to see them, especially in the current social, political, economic season that we find ourselves in. It's just really, really, this is a lot going on. This year has been tough on every level, it seems. I mean, this year has been really, really, really tough. And CT Vivian and John Lewis were two of those champions for people that society often forgets about. And if it's been tough for most of us in our, pretty comfortable middle-class lifestyles, it's been really tough on people who are having a tough time before 2020, before Corona, before the current movement that we see. And so there's just a lot going on in our world, a lot going on in our country. And there's nothing wrong with us focusing on how it impacts us definitely that we have to take care of ourselves. But I think it's really important that we also consider how this impacts other people, and the homeless and marginalized and other oppressed populations, because this is just a really, really, really tough time for a lot of people. So we keep those individuals that we may not even know by name or never even come to know. We just keep those individuals in mind as well. Anyone else, any prayer requests or concerns? What about any joys or celebrations to share before we go into prayer? Any birthdays, anniversaries, anything like that? Lisa?
I just wanted to share that just Miles is having a sense of confidence that's really exciting in beating some of his anxieties this summer. So he's really thriving. And in these times, to see someone that's really thriving and for some things that were just really tough for him, he's doing really well. So that's very exciting to see as a parent, because there's so much other stuff going on. So anyway, just for yay for that.
That's awesome. That's a big one. Anyone else? Going once. All right, Kate.
Rennie did turn 1 last month. I've been missing a couple months here, a couple weeks, I guess. But she's already 13 months and crazy.
That's beautiful.
We just did her baptism.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Anyone else? We will share that Andre and Damien did close on their house on Friday. Yay.
Yeah.
And posted a Facebook picture with the key. That's the fun part, right? The first time you ever sit down in that room and you look at how much money you have to pay over the course of 360 months, it is petrifying. So we're excited for them with their first home. And yeah, it's like you said, we celebrate the victories that we can find. Let us now just pose for a brief moment, silent meditative prayer, and then we'll proceed with the service before us. All right, let us pray. God, our first prayer is always thank you. We thank you for this church family. We thank you for this group that you have brought together to encourage one another while we simultaneously encourage ourselves and are encouraged by one another. We ask that you lift and light and love those people, those places, those situations that we spoke by name in this virtual experience. We know that you are always in control, that you are always among and with us. God, as we as individual leaders and we watch our leadership around us make tough decisions in the middle of pandemic, in the middle of unrest, in the middle of a social justice movement, we ask that they be guided by love and by light, and that no matter how difficult the decision is, that people take into account not only themselves and their own interests, but how it affects those around us and how it affects the most vulnerable among us. Help us as a church family to never forget those people who society often forgets. We love you, we honor, we adore you. Amen. Amen. So, before we get started, in honor of John Lewis, we're talking about leadership this month. I want to show a little clip. When I say little, it's literally 2 minutes of a moment, a masterclass actually that John Lewis did on the Oprah Winfrey Network. That kind of sets the tone for what we're talking about today. We're talking about discipline and how discipline plays into being a good leader. So I'm going to share my screen for a video. As soon as I can find it. Share my screen for a video. And then we'll start with the discussion.
We started organizing. We were able to bring more than 250,000 people to March on Washington. And we all had to prepare a speech. I was very young, 23 years old, with all of my hair and a few pounds lighter. I have the pleasure to present to the... When A. Philip Randolph said, "I now present to you young John Lewis, the National Chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee." I looked to my right. I saw hundreds and hundreds of young people who had been involved during the early days. Looked straight ahead. I saw this sea of humanity. Then I looked to the left. I saw young black men and young white men up in the trees trying to get a better view. And then I said to myself, but this is it. And I looked straight ahead again. And something said to me, go for it. And I opened my mouth and I started speaking.
We march today for jobs and freedom. But we have nothing to be proud of. Hundreds and thousands of our brothers are not here. But they're receiving starvation wages or no wages at all. Those that say be patient and wait, we must say that we cannot be patient. We do not want our freedom gradually, but we want to be free now. The time will come when we will not confine our marching to Washington. We will march through the South, through the streets of Jackson, through the streets of Danville, through the streets of Cambridge, through the streets of Birmingham. We must say, wake up, America, wake up, but we cannot stop, and we will not and cannot be patient.
Hi, YouTubers. I'm excited to give you an update about our own YouTube channel. Now you can find new videos every day. They're the kind of videos that will make you look at life differently. They may even make you laugh a little bit. Subscribe.
All right. So today we're looking at the...
I'm excited to give you an update about our own YouTube.
It never fails. Today, we're looking at the idea of discipline, of what it means to be disciplined, what it doesn't mean to discipline. This has nothing to do with the type of discipline with your children. What we're looking at today is the idea of being self-disciplined, doing those things that you have to do, doing those things that you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing them, even when you don't want to do them. I was reading an article the other day from an expatriate who's living in Italy. And if you remember, a few months ago, the pandemic was really wreaking havoc in Italy. I mean, it was really, really, really bad. And there's all these really beautiful videos of Italians in their courtyards, and they're all like in their courtyards singing, social distance singing, because you know everyone's on their balcony and they're singing with other people in their balcony. So, you know, they couldn't be together, but they, you know, they had these really beautiful moments. The pandemic was really, 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 really bad in Italy. And this particular expatriate who wrote this article was talking about how he doesn't understand what's going on with the pandemic in the United States. And he talks about one of the things that made it so difficult in Italy is the style of life, the lifestyle that Italians have. If in stereotypical lifestyle, it's very laid back. It's very, you know, very chill. You know, I had a friend that he did his postdoc in Italy, and he talked about, you know, being able to go home for lunch for a couple hours and drink wine, and you know, this really kind of chill, kind of laid back lifestyle. You know, hanging out at the piazza. Everyone in this article, he talks about everyone has a little card table and bottles of wine in the back of their car for if they just, you know, they're driving, they see something beautiful, they'll stop and have a little wine and cheese picnic. That's just a very much more relaxed way of life, and that caused some of the difficulty with the pandemic, because we have people that are so carefree, so relaxed, following masks and following social distance rules may be difficult, but you know, they hunkered down. They did what they had to do. And the article was talking about how, you know, people keep asking him what's going on in America, because he's an American who now lives in Italy. And he says perhaps people aren't disciplined enough. Now that we can argue that until the cows come home. But it made me question, you know, how disciplined am I? How disciplined are we when it comes to leading, to following, to doing stuff? There is a certain level of self-discipline that we have to have. There's a certain level of, okay, I need to do this. I have to do this. I may not want to, I may not feel like it, but it needs to be done, that we have to go through. One of the biggest things that I had to conquer when I was in college is the spirit of procrastination. Because I would procrastinate until the very end. And then I started realizing if I actually started studying when I knew the test was coming up, I would actually get to sleep the day before the test. If I actually started working on the paper the moment I knew it was due, I mean, because if you know, in college, you literally get a document that tells you when everything is due, when every test is going to be. And I would wait till the last minute, and then I would stress, and I hated the feeling of stress. I hated the feeling of not sleeping or having to wake up early to finish a paper or to print off something. And I will never forget when I went to my therapist, and I was, you know, talking to my therapist about how anxious I was about, you know, school and everything. And she asked a very simple question: then why do you wait? And I was like, I don't know. That's just what you do, right? And it became the idea of what if you can control the things? What if you control the things that you can control, and then you may not have to worry about that stuff anymore? And I started to study early. I started to prepare earlier, and there was nothing better than not stressing. Like, how many of you know that feeling of like, okay, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to fret. I've done the preparation, and now all I have to do is, show up or come through. There's something that really drives me crazy is when I don't prepare for something. The closer I get to it, the more anxious I get, the more nervous I get, the more upset I get, and I hate that feeling. I absolutely hate that feeling. And so I decided I was going to try everything in my power not to get that. Now, do I still procrastinate? Absolutely. It happens. But I really, really, really try to self-discipline myself to do that stuff, to prepare as much as I can so that I don't have to worry about that. The Bible in Hebrews 12th chapter, 11th verse says, "For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained in it." I'll read it again. It says, "For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have all been trained by it." It is very, very, very important that we practice doing those things that we have to do so that we can find that peace that it yields. Why do you think it's so easy for us not to practice that self-discipline? Anybody?
We like the comfort of not having to deal with stuff at that moment, especially if it's difficult or hard, or if there's a challenge in it that sometimes we may not have fully wrapped our heads around, and we're scared of messing it up. We're scared of getting it wrong, and it just stops us.
Remember Macbeth, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. What else? Why do you think we don't like to practice that self-discipline?
So it's easier to just live in chaos. I mean, I clean up my house, and by the end of the week, it's things everywhere. It's just easier not to pick up and put things away. It's just easier to walk away from the dirty dishes. It's even at work, I'm constantly catching up. I'm never on top of things. So I can't do today's tasks until I finish yesterday's. I don't know. I don't like living that way, but it just seems to be easier. Not easier. I don't know. It's confusing.
It happens. And it's like you go with the punches. I saw Kate's hand.
Well, I was just going to agree. It is easier. I mean, it's like you get into your own little bubble and then change. Sometimes I know that change is good and change is fine. And I'm learning how to step out of my comfort zone lately. And it is a struggle. And I'm not very good at confrontation. So it's kind of like, it's easier to just ignore all that and not be disciplined in the reality of having to maybe talk to someone about something that might be even hard, or having those hard conversations but I need to discipline myself to be able to do that in order to see and make a change.
Anybody else? Lee?
Like for me, this is interesting because at work, I'm the opposite. If I get something that needs to be done, I do it right then and there because I don't like leaving it at all. Because that means that that's one more thing I have to do the next day at work, and I like to have my days be relatively easy for me. And if I keep up with my work, it's easy. But at home, for some reason, I think it's just because I put so much mental energy to doing that at work that when I come home, I just want to get away from that. And I have gotten better about it. Like for pretty much all of my life, I have not kept a very clean room. Like I let clothes lay on the floor, never trashy, just cluttered and with laundry that needs to be done. But lately I'm like at that point, like, all right, I fill up my laundry basket, go do laundry. I don't care if it's 3 days worth of clothes or a day's worth of clothes, as long I have to set boundaries for myself now, because if I don't, I'll just not do it. And then 2 months later, I still have like a giant pile of laundry I have to get done. So, yeah.
Yep. When we do it all day long, it's like, nope, I need a break. Chris, you're on. No, you're not on mute, but I can't hear you.
Is that me?
No, I think Chris had his hand up, but I can't hear them. You can type it into the chat if you need to. Maybe you're not sharing your microphone. While they're trying to figure that out, anyone else? So, in that particular scripture, the idea is that for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant. And so that goes back to what Sarah and what Kate said, is it's easier. Like, who says today, I want to endure a painful experience? Here we go, Chris. This is from Chris. It says, Deidre, he said, it's easier to go with temptations and funner aspects of life than to do tasks that are needed and required. Absolutely. It could definitely be a fun thing, right? So what would you rather do? Work on this paper or read this book that you don't want to read, that you have to read for school? Or would you rather watch something that you want to watch or play something that you want to play, right? And we think it's a kid's thing, that all you know what children do is they would rather play than do their homework. Guess what? We adults do that. Like, we would rather, do X than do Y. There was a time in my life where I had 1 million pair of underwear because I didn't do laundry enough. And instead of just doing the laundry, what did I do? Just buy new ones, right? When you don't have kids, that kind of stuff is really easy to do. I feel like when you have children, you have to like keep them like prepared and ready for life. And so you have to like, watch their stuff. And when you don't, you can just go out and buy stuff. It's amazing. Then you look up and you're like, oh my God, I have way too many clothes, because instead of walking down the steps and doing the laundry, I just go to the store and buy new stuff. And isn't that more fun than lugging clothes up and down the basement steps and doing the laundry? Absolutely. And so how do we deal with that? That idea of being disciplined. If you're a leader, you have to follow certain rules. You have to follow certain a certain compass. You have to understand certain aspects. Now, there's a couple different ideas of leadership or a discipline that I want to talk about. This whole idea of the scripture, all discipline seems painful. Sometimes we think being a leader, we think having a title means that we are the expert. How many of you have ever had a boss like that? That because they were the boss, that they knew everything. And have you ever had a boss that could not do your job? Like, they couldn't do your job. It's not that they couldn't do it, but maybe they couldn't do it as well as you could. Maybe they didn't have the skill set that you had. Maybe, their way of doing it was a little outdated, or they knew in theory or in principle what to do, but actually like the actual job, the actual day-to-day stuff, you knew exactly how to do. If you ever watch that show Undercover Boss, you see people can be CEO of a company, and the very basic entry level, what the company does, the very, factory level assembly line work, they have no idea how to handle. They have no idea what to do. So one thing I want us to consider is that being a leader and being in charge doesn't mean that you are the expert, right? It does not mean that you're the expert. Just because you have the title doesn't mean you know everything. Have you ever been on your job and someone at the executive level sends down a mandate and you're the one doing the job and you're like, oh my God, this isn't gonna work. This makes no sense for how we actually function. I had a boss when I managed a lab. I was over all the chemicals, making all the chemicals for the lab. And she would, tell me, you need to do it this way, you need to do it that way. And I'm thinking, that's not how this stuff works, right? But it wasn't, I listened, I did it the way I knew it had to be done. She was happy with the result. On the other end, if you are the leader, just because you're in charge, just because you have the title, doesn't mean that you are the expert. At the same time, just because you're the leader and you're in charge doesn't mean that the people under you are dumb. It doesn't mean that the people under you are less than. It doesn't mean that you can't learn from the people under you. If you are a leader, one of the best and smartest things leaders do is surround themselves and build their team with people that are brilliant, that are really good at what they do. And you do that so that you can trust them to do what they are supposed to do, right? So like right now, we see governors all across the state. Those that we're giving really good leadership stickers to, like good job, are those who are following the advice of their health, human services, whatever, each state calls their particular person who is, their public health official for their state. Just because you're elected governor, just because the people know your name, just because you're in charge of you're the chief executive of the state, doesn't mean you are the expert at everything. You have to have people that you can go to, that you can lean on, and you let them do their job, and you support what skills and what information that they bring to the table. And this can be really hard for some people because some people need to have the recognition, or some people need for the people to think they're the ones who took charge and they're the ones who are in control. But again, that idea, you have to discipline yourself to understand what is best for the people we serve. What is best for those around us? What is best for the community? Is it best that I get my name called and everyone think I'm such a great person? Or is it best that we use the people with the skills, with the acumen, with the knowledge base to do the work? Remember, all forms of discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but if we practice that, we can experience some change. Just because you are the leader does not mean you need to be in charge of everything. Just because you are the boss doesn't mean you need to be in charge of everything. We have to learn how to bring people in and to allow them to shine in their individual thing. Just because you're in charge doesn't mean you can't learn from people, right? We have to learn, and we have to grow. We have to experience other people. And it doesn't mean that we lead everything. Sometimes the greatest thing the leader could do is step out of the way and let someone else shine, and let someone else come forth, and let someone else do what needs to be done. There's a clip that I want to show, but first I want to set it up. So anybody ever seen the show Grownish? It's a spinoff from Blackish. So there's this particular episode of Grownish where the main character wants to find, she needs money, and she's looking for a job, and she wants a job in the fashion industry. And so she gets a job at this really chic boutique, and they tell her to fold the t-shirts, right? So she folds the t-shirts. She does a really good job folding the t-shirts. And then she styles a mannequin. And then she, does some other stuff around the boutique. And her boss comes and says, what did you do to this mannequin? She's like, oh, you know, I styled it. And she was like, you're supposed to be folding the shirts. And she said, but, you know, I folded them. And after I folded them, then, you know, I wanted to style this mannequin. And her boss said, well, after you fold those shirts, you should go and fold other shirts. That's your job. You're the shirt folder. And she said, well, those shirts were already folded. And the boss said, well, you unfold them and fold them again. Like, she's creating, this is a small boutique. And they're trying to create this idea that the fabric is cared for, you know, that they're really, that all these people are busy and doing these things. And so the girl ended up getting fired from this particular job. So I want to share with you, I want to share with you the scene after she gets fired from the job, some advice that she gets from her friend. This is about a 2-minute clip. Share screen. So full screen.
So I tried the job board again. And as tempting as selling my eggs is, I needed to sell something that wouldn't lead to a possible knock on my door in 18 years. Hey, buy you something.
Most of these are used.
No, I can promise you they've never been used.
Okay. $38 for the troubles.
What? No, this is so not cool. What can I buy with this? A carton of milk? I need more money.
We're hiring.
Who?
I was trying to give you the hookup, but I see you on your little bougie tip, so yeah.
I'm sorry. I came off the wrong way. I didn't mean it like that.
You did. Look, I'm not just here to be stacking books. I'm studying the ins and outs of running a business.
Okay, but I'm not trying to run a bookstore. I'm trying to run the fashion world. And I don't know, this just doesn't seem like the path to fashion greatness.
Zoe, you're taking a shortcut to the end game, but you're skipping your opening move.
Okay, not true. I got a job at a great boutique, and legit, all they wanted me to do was fold and refold already folded shirts.
Great. Then you should have folded the shit out of the t-shirts.
But I saw the opportunity to do something better.
But that wasn't your job. Maybe if you would have done your job and worked hard, they would have noticed, and you would have got an opportunity to do something doper. Building blocks to greatness. Patience and work ethic, B.
Do they sell those here? Yeah. $38.
So my friends and I have a joke. Every single time we are doing our jobs, or someone is not doing their job, or doing everything else except for the job they're supposed to do, we say they should have folded the shit out of those shirts, because that's where we got that from. What do we think about that? That idea of folding the shirts, of doing that grunt work, that over and over again, that idea of patience and work ethic, through our lens of, we want to be up here, but we gotta focus on where we are right now. What do we think about that? What do you think about that? Kate, and then Lee.
Couldn't be truer. I mean, I as a nurse, I started out when I was in nursing school as a nurse's aide, so I can get perspective not only on like how to apply my critical thinking better, but just like kind of starting at a level that I can start to appreciate things. So now as a nurse, I so appreciate my nurse's aides because I knew what kind of work goes into that job. And you can tell the nurses who have never been a STNA or a nursing assistant before, because their appreciation isn't there. And I think that it takes building blocks. And I always say, like, to nursing students who ask me for advice, I say, get in the hospital and start out as a nursing aide. Some people, that's their end all be all, and that's fantastic, because that is a strong position as a healthcare worker. But for me, I just went up, but like, it was just, a view, that a perspective that I think every person needs to have in their own example of what their career is, or whatever they're trying to be doing. You kind of have to, I hate saying humble yourself, because that makes you sound like you are above something and you have to humble yourself back down. But I think it gives you an outlet to appreciate other realms that have brought you there.
Lee, I saw your hand up next.
Yeah, so actually the company I work for now, I started working there 8.5 years ago, and I was a picker. So my job was literally to fold shirts into boxes. And even though I wasn't the fastest picker, I was pretty accurate, but I also had feet issues where my feet hurt so much after walking all day that I just couldn't be fast because of it. And actually I had supervisors come up to me. They're they obviously see that I'm not a very fast picker, but they're like, you're still doing better than everybody, like all the other people. I'm like, what are you doing differently? I'm like, I just do my job and I don't talk to people, and after doing that for so many months and years, I've gotten promotions and people have asked me to do stuff for them. And, you just got to buckle down and do what you're supposed to be doing, and you will get noticed regardless if you think you will get noticed or not. So, yeah.
Anybody else? Oh, I love when dogs just randomly bogart the situation. So what about how does this relate to leadership? Consider the idea that sometimes our skill sets or our ambition may seem larger than our current situation. Have you ever felt like that? Like your ambition, your drive, perhaps even your intellect, or perhaps even your education, it seems so much larger than where we are. Or if you've ever been hired for a job that you felt overqualified for, right? Or if you've ever had a boss that you thought was a complete idiot. These are all situations that when you find yourself working under those circumstances, it can feel really draining. It can feel really annoying. You can feel overinflated. Why should I have to do this? They're an idiot. I've worked with people who have tried hard to prove the boss was an idiot in order to make themselves feel better. And there's all these different type of situations, and all those thoughts and all those feelings bring energy that do not serve us, do not help us, but they honestly frustrate the heck out of us, right? Because if you're constantly sitting around thinking my boss is an idiot, why am I doing this? This is stupid. What's the point? If you're constantly doing everything and living and carrying that energy around, how does that serve? How does that make us feel? How does that help us do anything? It doesn't. It wears you out. It wears you down. You're constantly frustrated. And so one of the things I'll tell people is, if you don't like a situation, change it. Find a new job, move somewhere else. If you can't change it, then change how you feel. Change how you think about it. Change the stuff that you can change about the situation. And fold the shirts. If that's what your job is, if that's the job that you were hired to do, and that's what you're supposed to do, it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. You do what you're supposed to do. If there's an ambition to do something else, if there's an opportunity to do something else, if you are not in charge, then you can't just take it. You can't just do it. There's a difference between having an executive level job and a entry level or practical level job. There are some jobs where your job is to make decisions and to change stuff and to alter stuff. There are some jobs where your job is to just continue to do the task that is before you. And there's nothing worse than having someone who can do every job but the one job they're supposed to be doing. It's like you can do everything else. I had a person who worked for me in a lab, and I'll never forget. You know, it was she was overkill. She was just like a I hate the word that we use to describe them because it's really demeaning. But that we call them grunts. And that's the type of work that they did. They were, usually students. They got paid with tuition and maybe like a couple $100 a month stipend. They didn't make a lot. And the most important job in a lab is bottle washing. You have to wash the bottles and the beakers. They have to be extremely clean. You don't just wash them, but you have to sterilize them. And there's a very specific way that you wash them and rinse them and prepare them to be autoclaved or prepare them to be sterilized. And this person, she would come in early and she would, hey, Mr. Terry, I made the coffee, and hey, Mr. Terry, I did this, and hey, Mr. Terry, I did that. And I promise you, 90% of the mornings there were no bottles clean because she was doing everything else except for the one thing she was supposed to do. Because she didn't do that one thing, it threw everything else off. And she would tell you, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do that, or I want to do this. And it's like, you don't do the one thing. Or she would do it, but she wouldn't do it right. So if something is sterilized in a lab, you have to put a marker. There's tape that you put on the item, and once it's sterilized, there's the tape changes color so that this is sterile. And it doesn't matter if you sterilize it. If you don't put the tape on there, we can't use it because we don't know if it was properly sterilized. That's the whole point. The tape changes color so it's properly sterilized. If it's not on there, then you have to start the process all over again. And so being a leader doesn't mean just doing the stuff you want to do, right? It means doing the stuff, the little tasks, the little stuff that makes all the difference in the world. So I pastor a church. I love pastoring, right? Absolutely love pastoring. And there are parts of pastoring that I love, like lunch. I like lunch. I like talking to people. I like, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee. Of course, we don't get to do that much. I like having church in person on Sundays where I can touch people and high five and, play with the kids. And then there's part of pastoring that I absolutely hate. I have to do funerals. Like who likes that part, right? I have to do stuff all the time. You have to talk to people that you may not ordinarily get excited to talk to. Like I have to go to meetings, and I have to sit in there on these denominational meetings. And some of these things, I'm on Zoom like, oh my God, don't fall asleep, don't fall asleep, don't fall asleep. There are parts of our jobs, there are parts of our titles, our position that we don't necessarily enjoy.
Right.
But we have to do those things. That's what we have to do. It's patience and work ethic. There are absolutely no shortcuts. And again, it goes back to that scripture, all discipline. It seems painful. There are painful things. So what do? You train yourself to be able to do those things that you have to do, that you need to do, so that you can get to that peace on the other side. Sometimes we prolong our pain because we're trying to figure out ways around it. We're trying to figure out ways how not to do it. I remember having a boss that really liked she liked for everybody to look busy. And so there would be times where I was sitting at my bench and I would just be pipetting water. I'd be, doing stuff, putting on gloves, I was constantly moving, constantly literally making up work to do so that I looked busy. And if you've ever tried to fake working, it's so much easier to actually work than to try to look like you're working, because then you got to find stuff to make up to do instead of actually doing the things that you have to do. There's a TED Talk I'm going to post later because I couldn't find it. I wasn't going to play it. I'm going to post it, where this guy talks about making small incremental changes in order to create larger changes in your life. And he talked about how he would start tasks and never finish them, and then he started just tweaking. So like he wanted to read more books, and so at first he tried to, I'm gonna read a book a week, and he couldn't keep up with the book a week, so he wouldn't read. He said so then he changed himself. Instead of reading a book a week, he challenged himself to just read X number of minutes per day, and just making those little small changes. And then he always wanted to learn how to play the drums. And so at first he went and bought this how to play the drum thing, and he was going to sit there for hours until he figured out how to play the drums. And he realized this is not the way to do it. And he started taking 30-minute online lessons, how to play the drums. 30 minutes, that's it. So once a week, 30 minutes, he learned how to play the drums. And by the end of years and years and years and years, there were so many little things, little tweaks that he made in his day-to-day life. He got to sit in on a drum session with one of his, rock band idols. He learned how to play all these different instruments, and he wrote books, and he did all these little things, just all these big things, just by tweaking just little bitty things. For so many of us, one of the reasons why we don't stay disciplined is that we look at the issue as a huge thing. Like if you look at your whole house as a space that needs to be organized, that seems scary, overwhelming, and very painful, and so I just won't do it. But if you start with the junk drawer, and then if you start with another drawer, and then if you start with not even the whole bookshelf, I'm gonna work on this one shelf. And then a couple days later, I'm gonna work on this shelf. And if you just set those little bitty increments of change, and give yourself treats along the way. So if I follow, this shelf every other day, every time I do the shelf, I'm gonna give myself five Amazon dollars. I have a friend, I have a friend, and her husband does that for her. He's like, if you can do these things, then, they have like a set Amazon budget. Then we'll add $5 to, incentivize the work. And so just start with those little bitty tasks and changing. And what that's doing is it's training your brain. It's training you to be prepared or to become more disciplined as it relates to those things. And that's what it takes. We've seen what undisciplined leadership looks like, and it doesn't look pretty. And so one of the things that I'm constantly working towards is how can I make sure that I do everything that I can to be disciplined in this way. It works in relationships, it works in finances. If you're training a dog, you're not necessarily training the dog, you're training yourself so that you are consistent in when you deal with the dog. Because at any time, if you switch your behavior, if you change the rules, then the dog will respond in kind. And so that's what we have to do. Maya in the chat, currencies with less experience, advanced faster than myself, did everything was required to do plus more. It's very draining. Absolutely. It is extremely draining. And sometimes, Maya, the difficult thing to do in those situations, one of the disciplines that we have to learn is how to advocate for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with asking a question to your superior. You know, just help me to understand what I can do, that I too can find this advancement that other people are finding. How many of us struggle sometimes to advocate for ourselves or to speak up for ourselves? It can be difficult at home. It can be difficult on the job. It can be difficult in friendships. And it's very draining when you feel like you aren't being heard or your needs aren't being met. And so you know, however you feel comfortable, start tweaking that behavior, you know, just asking questions. That's the way that I like to ask those difficult things, instead of saying, why do they keep getting promoted and I don't? I like to ask, so, you know, I've noticed, you know, that there's advancement that's taking place. Is there any advice you can give me on how I can advance? Is there anything that I should be aware of, or anything that I can do? So that way it puts you in the place of, I'm not angry that everybody else is being advanced, but I have noticed it. And it also puts you in, it also shows you as someone who's trying to improve, someone who's trying to bring it to their attention without coming off as the angry, upset employee. Anyone have anything else to add? Any questions, comments, concerns? I'm going to type that scripture. It's Hebrews, the 22nd chapter. Oh, not the 22nd chapter. Hold on, I'm going to paste that scripture into the chat there. Hebrews, the 12th chapter, verse 11, just in case anyone would like to jot that down. Hebrews 12:11. Anyone else? All right. I hope that everyone has it looks like it's a gorgeous day outside, but it is not cool. This is I need a pool, man. Like, I really miss the water. My gym is open and there's pools, but there is no way in the world that I am getting in a pool in the middle of a pandemic. The ancestors are whispering in my ear, don't do it. But yeah, I really miss water. So if I buy sprinklers and hook up the hose in the back and I'll just run around the backyard and freak out the neighbors. I just really miss being in the water in the heat. We pray that everyone has an amazing week. I have a sleep study on Tuesday. I pray that all goes well. I've been trying to do this all year, but Corona keeps messing it up. And so pray that everything that needs to happen happens. With that, if there are no more questions, then we'll close out. If everybody put your phone on mute, we'll close out by reciting the Lord's Prayer. Sometimes we do it audibly, and I've been told that throws some people off. And so if you're on mute, then I'll recite it. You can recite wherever you are. Our God, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Amen. If you want to save the chat, I don't know, maybe there's something in there you want to save. There's 3 little dots. You can click that and say save chat, and it'll save it on your computer if you're on a computer. If you're not on a computer, you can just screenshot it on your device, screenshot anything. The offering link for Tithely, I posted in the chat. If you don't get it off the chat, you can get it on our Facebook page. It's at the very top at St. Peter's Cincy on Facebook, and that will take you to Tithely, where you can do recurring giving, monthly, weekly, bi-weekly. Also tomorrow at noon-ish, Phil, myself, and Kate, who's been doing a lot of the online race discussions, we're going to be on NPR Cincinnati. What's the word? The Cincinnati edition, Michael Monk's show. So we're going to be on there talking about the race, rage, and fear, the white fragility conversation that we had. And so listen in. I think we're supposed to be on around 11:45. I think it's 11:45, maybe it's 12:45, I don't remember. But yeah, we'll be on there tomorrow on Cincinnati edition, the last 15 minutes of the show, if you want to listen in. And on Wednesday, our friend Holly McGee, who's come to St. Peter's 2 or 3 times for discussions on race and gender, she's going to be leading a conversation called First Sightings, and it's on racial, or it's on racism, like certain racist ideas and where they come from. She's a history professor at the University of Cincinnati, focusing on American history and African-American history. And so she's like I said, she's been to the church several times, and we're super, super, super excited about that. I'll post it in the Facebook group so you can get on there if you haven't registered. There's nothing else. Thank you all so much. Everyone have a blessed day. Stay cool. Don't melt. And peace.